Now it's time to clear up another little bit of confusion. The builders of the megaliths, so why were they built? What are they? Well, a lot of you will have seen pictures like this one, and this one is South American, and we can see the features. The first feature that strikes you is the stones are absolutely bloody enormous. The second feature that strikes you is that every so often there's a polygonal part that serves to key the whole wall together. And there are other features as well, and my theory is that on some of these monoliths these features were deliberately removed for cosmetic reasons. We can see some scarring around the base of these stones and various places where the stubs were removed. So what do I mean by stubs? Well, they left pieces, and again you can see here a scar near the base, and if we go to many of these pictures we'll see these mysterious stubs. And a lot of people aren't aware that apart from South America there were also other places where this building technique was used. In fact, in Turkey and throughout the entire Mediterranean, the earliest levels of construction in stone seem to be using this method. Very fine joints, polygonal stones cut in with each other. And what is the purpose of that? We'll get onto that towards the end of this presentation. This is in fact Turkey, not South America, and this is a place called Alaka Hoyak, and there are quite a few walls in Turkey that have this sort of first two courses or first three courses with this type of construction, which is something we are told was achieved in ultra hard stone using copper chisels and lumps of rock. The second thing is the sheer massiveness of the stones. Now this is a part of the foundations at Baalbek in Syria, and these stones, as you can see, are absolutely huge, weighing 400 to 500 tons each, these particular ones, and you can see by the people walking across them. So there seem to be two different theories as to how to build this wall. You either build it big or you build it interlocked. And when we say big, here is a stone which was left abandoned in a quarry, not because it was too big to move, because there are stones of comparable size in the foundation, and this is well over 1,000 tons. Now we would have great difficulty moving these today. We could move them, unlike what some people say. Using 2 or 3 of our largest mobile cranes we could move them, but there's a problem. Yes, we could move them, but we couldn't put them in place. Why is this? Because the cranes need somewhere to stand, and there is no place for them to stand in any of the construction sites. So whatever they used, it wasn't cranes. So what happens when an advanced people have encountered somewhat less civilized people and then leave? Well, here's an example. These are cargo culters, and they are waiting, hopefully, for the return of their gods to bring the cargo. And here at the end of the runway at the back you can see the plane that they've built to try and attract the great metal bird down from the sky. And cargo cults at one time were quite spread across the Pacific Islands, because you had the Japanese and the Americans operating out of there. There was the war, they suddenly withdrew, and so you got these cargo cults. And this seems to be the natural reaction of people when their gods leave them. They want them back, so they'll try and imitate them in order to try and entice them back. They even built radio huts. Here is a cargo cult radio hut, built in, as you can see, a decidedly Western style. They haven't got corrugated iron for the roof, so they've had to thatch it, but the windows are built with bars in, exactly the way that we in the West would build them. The doors exactly the same, and inside you've got imitation radios made out of bamboo, which obviously don't work, but they still spend quite a lot of time shouting into them. So what do we humans do? What did we do in the times when the megaliths were built, when the builders either left or got destroyed? We tried to imitate them. And here's pretty well a failed attempt. It's a bent pyramid at Saqqara. Egyptologists will try and tell you that it's older than the Great Pyramids, but it's not, because there's not sufficient erosion on it. But it's still falling down. Why is it falling down? They got the angles wrong. So this is human beings trying to copy, or shall we say primitive humans trying to copy a more civilized and technological design and failing. And you can see in fact that the rocks they used were considerably smaller also than those in the Great Pyramid. And here we have South America again, and you can see that we have some polygonal walls and we have some later construction. The later construction is all little stones. It's Inca work, whereas these large polygonal blocks at the bottom are the work of an earlier age. So why would somebody want to build to last? Because let's face it, that is the only reason for building with absolutely enormous stones, so that they will withstand geological catastrophes, and polygonal stones because the polygonal stone walls are very, very resistant to earthquakes and other natural events. In my mind there's only one reason, and that is the fact that nearly all other materials decay over the period of thousands, tens of thousands of years, down to nothing. So here we have a relatively modern abandoned place. This is actually in Russia, and it's an airbase. As you can see, the aircraft that's built of aluminium is largely fine. However, I'm told that aircraft aluminium does in fact decay, and after a few tens of thousands of years you would just have a little heap of white powder. You can see the building in the background hasn't done too well. This is not the result of demolition, it's just the result of being left, and weather. You can actually see that the roof at the back has collapsed inside the building. This is what happens to a building, a modern building, when you don't maintain it. So we build out of concrete a lot, and these walls are concrete. As you can see, they're scabbing already, and they're examples of World War I pillar boxes that have almost completely disappeared, and that's less than 200 years away. So are they going to last thousands of years, tens of thousands of years? No. How about iron? Well, we all know about rust. And here's a 1960s car that was left in a junkyard for around about 40 years. And you can see it's well on its way to disappearing. There's holes in a lot of places, it's disappearing from the edges. Maybe 100 years time there won't really be anything left. So why would a species that has space travel, in particular faster than light or near light speed space travel, want to build to last? Well, they'd want to do that especially if they were planning on coming back. And the reason for that is time dilation. As you go nearer the speed of light, the amount of time difference there is between the people who are on a planet which is relatively stationary, and the people in your spacecraft increases exponentially. As you go beyond the speed of light, you're talking about a 1-year trip that to you is 1 year in your spaceship, but to people who are on a planet would be tens of thousands of years. And this is why these monuments are built on such a staggering scale. These are places that they planned to reuse, and okay, they've changed their plans for some reason. They haven't come back, but I'm sure that the plan originally was for them to reuse these places, to reuse the Great Pyramid, to reuse the temple complexes, so called, in South America, and the Easter Island installations. There are also big polygonal wall installations at Easter Island, by the way, and all of these places, I'm sure, were useful bases for them, so they built them to last. But they've never been back, despite our cargo cult. So, I hope you found this useful. If you have, please like, share and subscribe, and I'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.
Here's a few quick words before you go. Don't forget to check out other great videos on Arduinotronic, and if you liked this video or found it interesting or useful, please like, share, and subscribe! See you soon!